And like you said, for 25 years, the focus of my work has been supporting and working for education that helps us thrive. And that's why I'm so happy to be here today. So I'm going to talk about something I like to call storytelling as an act of freedom. And I'm going to ask you to say that with me, just like that. So on the count of 3, you're going to do that. And you're going to be really loud, so in the hallways out there, they're thinking we're doing something illegal, okay? So on the count of 3, ready? Say that for me. Ready? Go like this. Storytelling as an act of freedom. Try that again. I couldn't hear people. Let's go, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Storytelling as an act of freedom. Okay, I just fell in love with you. Now, I just want to tell you, there's just 3 lessons I've come to learn that I'd like to share with you. So how many lessons? 3. I'm sorry, how many lessons? 3. Okay, 3. Now, I just got to tell you that this talk is all about you. So the talk is about who? Us, you, me. Okay, so now, how many lessons are there? 3. For lesson number 1, I got to tell you a little secret. The secret is I have an accent. Okay. And the accent originally is from San Diego, where I was a high school teacher for 10 years. And I lived and breathed that job. I loved it. But during probably the 5th year of it, I was burning out. And I was probably giving from an empty cup when I look back at it now. And so what I did, and I don't know if it was punishment to myself, but I took myself to Madison, Wisconsin in the winter, which is a very cold place to be. And I went to a retreat with educators from all over the nation, from every walk of life. And the first night, the educator, the leader, the facilitator said to us, name a teacher who's impacted you. And that evening, around the circle, people talked about these women and men who had impacted us. And at the end of that talk, of those 2 hours, the facilitator pointed out that not one of us mentioned the subject those teachers taught. They never talked about maths or science. They talked about who they were, courageous, integritous, with passion, compassion. And what we learned from those 5 days, if you could say that really loudly. Ready? On the count of 3. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we teach who you are. I think I was teaching living from an empty cup at the time. And that's the truth. So I was going back to school and I was studying, I was doing my doctorate, and I changed everything for me. And I was looking at, I changed it to gay and lesbian teachers, my community. And I wanted to know about how who they were, in this case, impacted what they did. And lesson number 1, I believe, connects to whoever you are. So let me give you an example, and just trust me here. So Lynn said, because I'm a lesbian and because I know what it's like to be left out, I make sure everyone gets in, everyone participates. I guess in a way I design my program so that everyone plays regardless of who they are. You see, she knew who she was, and regardless of what the state said or NAP plans or standards, she was teaching from a different place. And every person I talked to was saying the same thing. Now, what I do is I go between the States and Australia, working with new teachers and current teachers and educational leaders. And in both countries, when I ask people the story, when we talk about freedom, about why they're a teacher, they tell me these 2 things. They say, I like content or I love kids. And you can see where they fall under those categories. And often, once in a while, I'll meet a teacher or a leader who talks about who they are in relationship to what they do. Now, I think it's important because wherever I go, teachers are being reduced to maps. You know, it's that idea that just do this. This is how to be a teacher. Pre-service teachers used to say to me, DeJean, William, what do I do? And I'd say, I don't know what to do, but maybe we should give you a compass, not a map. And so wherever I go in both countries, we're kind of addicted to talking about the methods we use or the content we teach. But rarely do we talk about the teacher, that's you, because you're all teachers in this room, about who you are. And the reason I think we need to talk about you, now how many lessons are there? 3. Right? And this presentation's all about who? Okay, you're awake with me, is because of beach balls. Now the reason is that you have probably experienced this once in a while, I would say are the wounded healers. They're the ones, I've been there sometimes, where it's like having a beach ball, trying to swim. You've got this beach ball you're holding down, but you can't swim because you got this energy. And that beach ball, and I've heard Debbie Ford say, it's like the shadow. It's those pieces of our lives that we don't want to talk about. Our fear, our doubt, our uncertainty, our past, our courage. And sometimes there are people that I call healed warriors. They're the women and men who bring up the beach ball mindfully and focus on their lives as much as their profession. And they're the ones who are changing the world. So let me just share with you what Maxine Green says. She says, a teacher in search of his or her own freedom may be the only kind of teacher who can arouse young persons to go in search of their own. as we think about lesson number 1, as storytelling as an act of freedom, would you read those 3 words out loud as you can? Ready? On the count of 3. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm in love with you. We just bonded. Your story matters. What I know is your race matters. The languages you know and don't know matter. Your history, your past, your courage, your fear, the things you want to talk about and don't, they matter. Because that story is what is resonating around everyone you're with. And that's the hope. So to tell you about lesson number 2, I'd like to give you a little test. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to visualize what you see when I show you this word, okay? Here we go. The word is nurse. Got a little movie, story. So I'm just rhetorically asking you, what gender was that person? What was the person wearing? What race was he or she? What room, where do they work? Did you see one story or did you see many? Let me try it again. You can pick which one you want. Let's try this. Let's think of Australian. What story did you see or are you seeing? Is it one story or is it many? Was I part of that story or not? You know, many new teachers I would work with, part of the work was trying to undo the story of teacher because they would play the role. They had one story in their head, minus not many. And the problem with that is if you go to school or where you work or watch TV, often the one story, it feels like when they describe what it feels like to be a woman, the story feels like this. You might know there's many possibilities, but it's hard to dream of what you can become if you can't see it. It feels like that. It feels like that. So let me give you one long quote, if you don't mind, from someone who just passed. She said, "When those who have the power to name and to socially construct reality choose not to see you or hear you, whether you are dark-skinned, old, disabled, female, or speak with a different accent or dialect than theirs, when someone with the authority of a teacher say, 'Describe the world,' and you are not in it, there is a moment of psychic disequilibrium as if you looked in the mirror and saw nothing." I'd say it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. Now, my definition of freedom is moving past what you think about yourself. You might have the beach ball, you know, we don't go to university, or I come from poverty, and then you find out there's other possibilities. That's transformation. And when you find that out, there's no stopping you. But sometimes in school, it feels like this. So I thought I'd give you a few examples of what this lesson number 2 is about. Now, you heard about AVID. I'm not here to talk about AVID. I'm here to tell you about the story behind it. And what it does is it works with students who are in the academic middle, where no one in their family's gone to university. And we invite them to take AVID. They take it from year 7 through 12. We do all this stuff with them. We teach them how to do school. We put them in the right classes for university. We take them on field trips to universities. We work with their parents. We show them how to fill out scholarships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And after all these years with it, much like the work you do, what I've come to believe is that AVID just creates a new story for the students. In fact, I've heard teachers say who are about to drop out of the profession is that they move from being a teacher into a coach, into an advocate. So I think what AVID's about is putting people into a new story of what's possible. And most AVID students go off to university. I won't read it, but this is what Chris said. He said, you know, people told me I could be successful, but AVID showed me. And he's actually at USC right now in the States getting his master's degree. Now, remember, we're thinking of 3 lessons, right? And this talk is all about who? Try it again. It's about who? Okay, you're still with me. I can't see you because it's so bright in here. Now, you might have been in a space like this where teaching and learning was something we call a banking model of education. It's the idea that I'm the teacher and you are my students and you know nothing. And my job is just to fill your head up with lots of information. In fact, I think, don't tell anybody, but many of our schools and universities are turning into fact factories. Okay, not dream factories. And the problem is we think that learning just happens from our shoulders up. It's the idea, I would say, from Zen folks who've told me that actually to learn something, you need to leave your head at the door. Leave your head at the door. But there is a different way. And I'm meeting women and men from all over the place who are creating dream factories. And this is where if you're studying, let's say, nurse, and you're in a very diverse community of learners, those knowers, and the teacher is one of the knowers, I can't see reality unless I'm really with community. It means if I'm just seeing one story in a community, it helps me see many. It helps me dream. It's a dream factory. You know, you can't become what you can't see, and that's one of the things I love about multicultural education, which I think is basic education. It moves from just one story to many. It says family might be families. It might be female means women all over the place. It helps us see a reflection of ourselves, but also lets me know that I'm not the only story in the world. You know, a lot of times we say about students, we say they're not very motivated. That's a story, that's a beach ball, not very motivated. It's hard to be motivated if you've never seen what's possible. You can't become what you can't see. This is a dream factory. It's not just with books. So for lesson number 2, if you don't mind, could you read that out really loud? Lesson number 2 on the count 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Stories we tell now.
I think this conference is an example of that for me. So for lesson number 3, now we said this is storytelling as an act of freedom. So would you do that for me one more time as we get ready to close this? So count 3 really loud. Storytelling as an act of freedom, okay? And we said your story matters, right? And the stories we tell matters. So let me close with lesson number 3, and it's with a story. And I've come to believe that we learn better in story rather than facts and numbers and figures. I'm from San Diego. A couple years into that profession, I was able to buy a house. You can't really do that anymore there. And in that house, I didn't have a lot of money. There was a little backyard. It's still there. And all there in the backyard was grass. And there was a chain link fence. And this is a true story. I had just enough money that month to buy a little tree. It was a trumpet tree. A trumpet tree gets these yellow flowers that bloom upside down. The only reason I bought it is I could afford it. So I dug up the grass next to that chain link fence, and I planted this tree. And I watered it and tended to it, and the thing started growing. And as it grew, at night, it would bloom these flowers, and the backyard smelled. People used to walk by my house and say they'd go for walks just because it smelled so beautiful. And over the years, the tree got bigger and bigger, and as it grew, the limbs started growing into the chain link fence. And one year, it stopped blooming. It had no more room to grow. So what I did is I got ready to dig it up. Now all my friends and family said, do not dig up the tree, it's fine, leave it alone, it's fine. But for some crazy reason, I dug it up and I moved it a few feet, I don't know meters, but remember there's many stories. So I moved it up and I dug it in and did what I need to do, and the next morning, all the leaves fell off the tree. And my friends and family said, see, I told you shouldn't do that, shouldn't do it, except for one leaf that was kind of hanging there like this. Was hanging like that. So I watered it and I talked to it and I'm like, come on baby, you can make it, right? And a couple days later I walk out and that one leaf, this is a true story, went boom. And over time, it doubled in size and tripled in size. And then one year, what happened was I had flowers all over that tree. And I tell you that story as I tell you lesson number 3 about storytelling as an act of freedom of what's possible for all of us is this. You might, after this conference or maybe after this talk, think about you differently. You might start focusing on you as much as you focus on your work. You might pay attention to a beach ball that you never did before. It could be your courage. You might consider the kinds of resources that are in your office or on the walls or in the textbooks that you use or wherever it is so that people's whose lives had never been seen now can be. And as you do it, it might feel like all the leaves are falling off the tree. And your friends and colleagues might say, it's all about the test. Oh, we don't really do that here. Or what are you thinking? And I want to tell you that when you get that shadow belief that I must not be good, this isn't really working, it's just a beach ball, I want to remind you that all that it's about is it takes some time for a new root system to grow. So don't internalize it. So for lesson number 3, my hope for you is you see you different. And the lesson I've learned, oh, there's the tree. There was enough room to actually put a new fence up. The lesson is that you are actually a storyteller. So could you say those 3 words as loud as you can, because I know you probably need morning tea. So ready? On the count 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Your life, the work that you do, the resources that you use, every day you're telling all of us what's possible in our lives. So for that, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here, and thank you for this great conference. Thank you so much.